There's been several videos lately about whether you carry chambered or not. And one of the topics that keeps coming up in those videos is whether a person has adequately trained with their gun, whether they feel safe with their gun. Because I feel that's a lot of the reasons why a lot of people will carry their gun in an unloaded state is because they don't feel safe with it. They feel that there's more of a chance of them making a mistake and having a negligent discharge than there is of them actually needing the gun to be loaded. I don't agree with that, and to try to counteract that, the thing I think is that someone needs to feel more comfortable with their gun. So because of that, I want to discuss what trigger group I think is best for someone who is a new person to shooting, a new person to carrying, who may have some of that anxiety about carrying. Now, there's like 4 different types of triggers you're really going to run into when you're carrying. There's double action only, light double action, there's double action and single action, and there's single action. I've done a video on trigger types before, but I want to gear this one mainly towards new carriers. Now, first one I'll talk about here is the single action only. That is like with a 1911 and similar guns, guns that you'll always find a manual safety on a single action gun, pretty much. And these are great, and they're great for competitions, and they're great for self-defense, and they're great for lots of things. But they do require that extra training. You do have to be able to thumb off the safety. So they do require extra training, and it is single action. And a lot of people really have trouble getting used to this, having a gun in a pipe and the hammer back. So even because of the 2 reasons, because of the training needed to thumb off the safety, which is essential that you get that into where it's habit that you do that, and the fact that it's hard for a lot of people to adjust to having one in the chamber and the hammer back, I don't recommend a single action only to new carriers. Now the next option would be double action, single action. Now that's one that once you chamber the slide and you cock it back, the hammer's back, and you decock it. Then your very first pull will be that long double action pull. But after it cycles, the hammer will stay back and you'll have a short single action pull, which is for a fast follow-up shot. Now these are great, and I think people can feel very comfortable with these. There are no manual safeties, but the long pull is the actual safety there. These are great, but the only problem I've seen with a double action, single action like this, and you find this trigger also in guns like the Walther PPK, is I've seen a lot of people that are training, that are new carriers, they get that first shot off with the long trigger pull. It goes to that short reset trigger, so you have that little short light trigger pull for the second shot. They misfire, they shoot the ceiling, they shoot the floor. It really shakes their nerves. Makes them feel a little uncomfortable with their gun. So I don't recommend that just for that sole reason only. Just that not being able to control the second shot sometimes and having to adjust from one trigger pull to another trigger pull is not always something you want to do when you're just starting out. So even though this is one of my favorite platforms, I don't recommend it to beginners. Now another way to go is a light double action like the car here. You have to pull a sear back. Every time you pull the trigger, you're pulling the sear back and it pulls and fires through. But you have that long, consistent pull every shot. Every shot is that same trigger pull. And this is a great trigger for new people. This is a great trigger for beginners. But because it is a light double action, it's not as heavy as a full double action only pistol. So with a new person, they like that heavy feature, I think. So this may not be my first choice for a new person. Now, I love this trigger, and I think the car trigger is one of the best triggers in the business. But because it's a little bit lighter for a double action, it does make some people feel uncomfortable. Even though it's not really that light, it's so smooth that it makes people feel like it's light, and it really scares them a little bit. So for more psychological reasons, I don't recommend that one. Now, the Glock trigger, some people are going to be like, oh, about Glock triggers. Well, Glock triggers, I love my Glocks, but same thing here. You have that first long pull, and it's a good pull. It's a nice trigger, but you have that short reset, so you have that chance of your second shot going a little wild for new people. And I've seen it happen so many times. I've seen so many ranges that her ceilings are full of bullet holes just because of that reason. And for that reason, I don't recommend them to beginners. And that lack of a safety and that shorter pull, that lighter double action pull, doesn't make them feel all that comfortable. So we're dealing with the psychological aspect here a lot. So because of that, what I recommend is something that's double action only. You get that long trigger pull each time. The hammer does not stay back after a round is fired. You always have that pull. It's consistent. It's nice and it's heavy. It's not so heavy that you're inaccurate with it, but it's heavy enough that you feel safe. That's not going to snag, and that's not going to just set the gun off. I mean, it is a very deliberate pull. So for that reason, I recommend a double action only gun like a SIG P250 for a beginner. They are going to feel so comfortable and so safe knowing that it takes effort to pull that trigger. You have to do it deliberately, and if you don't do that, the gun's not going to fire. It just really helps them a lot psychologically. Now, if you're willing to get outside of semi-autos, of course I would say the revolver, because the revolver every time has that long double action pull also, but then you also have the option of a manual single action. It doesn't do it for you automatically. It's manual. You have to do that on your own, but it gives you that option for that accurate light pull. So to me, revolver triggers are by far the best, double action, single action revolver. But if you're going to stick to semi-autos and you're just starting out, I would recommend getting a double action only semi-auto. You'll just feel so much more comfortable with it. You'll feel so safe, and you'll start to be able to work your way up to where you feel safer carrying other guns. You know, once you've carried your gun for a while and it hasn't gone off, you'll feel so much better. And you can really work past those, and then you work your way up to a nicer gun like the SIG here. But it's an evolution, and don't be afraid to take a first step. Don't feel like you have to jump in immediately to the most advanced platform you can just because you want to seem like you know what you're doing. Get what you're comfortable with. That comfort will make such a huge psychological factor. It will change your experience for carrying. It'll make you so much more comfortable. It'll make you feel so much more secure, and it'll make you so much more proficient with your weapon.